offer any assistance there, or if you have suggestions to make that easier, please do so, because one of those projects that gets put off forever because no one wants to tackle it, but it's important and it'll be good to have it done. So thank you, Andrew, for that. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention is that you may or may not have noticed that in the paper last week, there was a couple of inaccuracies in the article about the city-owned land fees. I don't know if you know that yet, Alistair. But the article on the front page that talked about fees for city-owned property referred to information that was in the proposed fee schedule that we had in our packets, not in what was accrued at the table here that night. And so I want to make it clear that we did not increase the fee. It's still $100 to apply for use of city-owned property, and we did not put anything specific about dealing with nonprofit groups. We took those two things out, and I wonder if you could somehow update that in the paper, would be great. Thank you, Alistair.
Alistair, do you need a printed copy of what was ultimately?
Yeah, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah.
Can we get him a copy?
Yeah, thank you. I think that's all.
Okay. Nothing else from land use?
I don't think so.
Thank you. Moving on to public health and safety. Municipal Code 612B, authority to place and maintain traffic signs and signals.
So as with many things, sometimes something seems really simple and then becomes much more complicated when we start looking at it. So this was brought to my attention by Scott. Currently, our code puts the authority to pick locations that may need traffic signals into the chief of police's hands. After a little bit of chatting with Scott and Peter, and I'm gonna try to meet with Jim about this as well, Scott doesn't feel like that's necessarily the best placement of that authority, since Peter can maybe elaborate on this a little bit more, but oftentimes we wanna consult with an engineer or somebody who does traffic studies in order to determine what a safe placement for a traffic sign is. So we're opening that can of worms and looking at ways to reword that particular piece of code to kind of keep it in keeping with those concerns. Does that?
I think you hit the nail on the head. I support Scott's position. I think in today's day and age, if you looked around the country, you'd see more often than not that kind of responsibility lies with the Public Works Director. Having said that, oftentimes Public Works departments will have professional licensed engineers on staff. We don't have that, so my recommendation is to simply suggest that when appropriate, our Public Works department consults with a traffic engineer.
And then Scott had asked that we also consider if we need to codify in some way other options for people to request signage. So if the chief of police wishes to request signage, or I think fire was mentioned, and a couple other things were being brainstormed in committee. So I'm gonna chat with a small group and see if we want to write that in, or if we feel like an informal process on that is sufficient. I think committee felt like it should be codified in some way, so that's the other piece. I thought that maybe I could move this forward more quickly, but I think it's probably gonna be off the agenda as of next meeting and then pop back up later.
Okay. Any questions or discussion on that? Seeing none. Anything else from public health and safety?
We spent a considerable amount of time again on dogs, which Corey and the committee of volunteers have been doing really excellent work on. Again, everything seems simple until you start working on it, and then it becomes abundantly complicated. So I don't know if you want to share anything, Corey. I think we're moving closer.
We're very close.
Like,
We're very, very close.
maybe we'll have it as a discussion item again on the next agenda.
Maybe.
I feel confident.
Oh!
For a first reading.
Might.
We're feeling ambitious
Wow,
in
I
public
guess
health and
we are.
safety. Yeah, so it would be nice to move that along, because they put a lot of thought and a lot of work into it, and I think it's really close.
Very close.
Yes. And then the other ongoing sort of project is we thought that we had a discrepancy in how our city ordinances or our city code dealt with jurisdiction. And after doing, for our law enforcement, and after doing a little bit of research, we found that the issue is actually that we didn't put a repealer clause in one of our ordinances. So we have two ordinances that address police jurisdiction in our city, one of which should be current and one of which should have been repealed. And I actually printed copies for all of you. I got this last minute, so if you wanna pass those down. So really, I think it's just gonna be a little bit of code cleanup, which admin and finance is very familiar with. So I'm gonna draft that and hopefully bring that forward soon. It's a pretty simple fix. It's simply taking the latter of the two ordinances that address the same thing and cleaning our code so we don't have two different sort of policies on jurisdiction. Which simplified it for me because I thought we had to try to make a decision, but unless we wanna reopen something that has been decided in 1999, we might just go with the decision that was made.
Okay.
And the 1999 version of the code is what our law enforcement has been operating under and feels is very effective. So.
The previous version was from, looks like 1997.
97, yeah. So, I think that might be actually simpler than I thought, so that's good, because I like when that sometimes happens. Since I don't have that on for discussion this evening, I believe it will come up for discussion on the next council agenda, but it should be moved to action pretty quickly, because I think it's pretty simple, just clean up.
Okay. Anything else from public health and safety?
That's really it, we just did a lot of dogs.
Okay.
Good job.
Any comments or questions regarding public health and safety? Seeing none. Moving on to public works. City engineer selection process. Several weeks ago, we received 8 responses to the city's request for proposals for the city engineer contract. We put together a review committee consisting of the members of Public Works, as well as 3 members of the staff who happen to all be sitting right in a row there, and myself. We narrowed it down to 3 finalists, and we interviewed the 3 finalists last Friday, and we have ranked them 1, 2, and 3 as we have done in the past. Number 3 was Sanderson Stewart, number 2 was Interstate Engineering, and number 1 was Great West, who also happens to be our current engineer. So we will pass that on to admin and finance to begin the process of negotiating a contract. Any comments or questions on any of that?
If I could get 2 copies of the Great West proposal for the other 2 committee members, so that they can review what they presented.
There's one.
I mean,
We got more if you want.
There's some upstairs as well.
I'll volunteer.
Happy to get ready.
I got it, that's okay.
There are several copies upstairs as well, so.
So, that's all we need, and we will, let's work on that.
For any of the other members, was there anything that I overlooked?
Mr. Mayor, that's listed as an action item, but do we not need to take action on it?
I mean, the action is to refer it to the next committee,
Okay, good enough.
so.
So the next thing on the public works agenda is recycling survey results. These are of course all posted online on the city's website, and I didn't make copies because we're recycling and not trying to use a lot of paper.
There you go.
But it's really interesting to read through the comments, and our recycling board is gonna meet next Monday at 8:30 in the morning. Everybody is of course welcome to come. We're gonna be discussing the results of this.
You said they were on the city webpage?
Where, Diane, it's on the.
Yeah, go to the city website, it's under the recycling board.
Right.
It's right on the front page of the recycling board.
Yeah, thank you. And coincidentally, it's just so interesting how things like this happen in Red Lodge, but our last question was, would you compost if it were available, grass clippings, branches, et cetera? 72.3% of the people, of respondents, of which there were over 500, said yes, they would. And there's another group in town